So, as we have a lot to cover today, so enjoy the session and let's get started. My name is Angel Buendia. I'm the knowledge manager at Salife, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar about quality culture. So now let me introduce today's topic. It is about building a quality culture. And you know that having a strong quality culture in any organization is more important than ever. And I think that what you will learn today is not new to you, but I'm sure that you know it's time to shift our thinking. Quality isn't just the responsibility of one department, such as the quality department. In fact, it is a mindset that should be present throughout the organization. And for quality to be, truly embedded into any organization, everyone from the top executives to the frontline employees needs to understand and needs to embrace quality. And this approach makes the quality a natural part of everything ever we do in our daily tasks, from driving ongoing improvement to reaching excellence, at the top, right? So the purpose of today's webinar is to know why developing a quality culture is a must for everyone and how we can achieve it. And this is why we have here our expert speaker. She is Lesley Worthington. She is an expert in communication. She's also a leadership coach. She works with individuals and teams to develop a clear understanding of the role of quality assurance within their organizations, especially in the life sciences. So having said that, I'm pleased to introduce you to Lesley Worthington. Hi, Lesley. Welcome to our training session.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I'm in Canada, just to let everyone know where I am. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. And aside from being a communication and leadership coach, the part that might be interesting or might be important for everyone to know is that I also worked in quality for about 20 years. I was a quality assurance and regulatory affairs manager for a couple of decades in Canada, medical devices. I've experienced small startups and big global companies, and I'm essentially self-taught when it comes to quality. And I think most of us are when we first get into the position. I had to figure out how to build the quality systems for these startups, and I didn't even know what the word quality meant. I'd never heard of ISO. I had no idea what GMP was all about. And I think when we come in with no knowledge, we learn differently and pass on our knowledge differently than when we learned from a textbook. And I personally think it's a huge advantage because our learning is really practical and relevant. I came in with a science degree that was heavy in psychology and a law degree. And then the guy that hired me figured I could figure it out, so I did. I haven't been working in quality for I think about 8 or 10 years now, but for the past 5 years, I've been a communication and leadership coach. I'm a certified executive coach, and I work with individuals, but I also work with quality teams on how to communicate more effectively about quality throughout their organizations. So basically, I'm helping people with the skills that allow them to build a quality culture, which is what we're going to talk about today. So this training is probably a little different from most of the SciLife training that you run into. It's not very technical at all. It's more about like having some insights and really thinking, that's what's required to do this, because sometimes it's a bit of a surprise about what's really required to be successful at building a quality culture. So let's get started. Hopefully my slides will click. There we go. So my objective today is to explore why a quality culture is essential and to show you the pathway to get there. I want you to understand how to make quality part of your company's DNA so that you can set yourself up for success as an organization. And here's the agenda. This is what we're going to talk about. Very simple agenda. Everything I do is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple and clear. First, we'll discuss what is a quality culture. Why do we need a quality culture? What's the foundation for a quality culture? And how do we build one? And that's it. That's our discussion. And it's an important one. And at the end, we'll have time for some discussion and questions and answers. I'm not interested in a death by PowerPoint kind of situation today. I'm not going to show you a bunch of crowded, overwhelming slides. You already get enough of that in your regular work. The point of this training is to make you think and hopefully motivate you to take action. And you are not going to be motivated if you're bored, overwhelmed, or asleep. So I've got a couple of polls. So the first poll is coming up here. And Andrea is going to put up the poll, but I'm going to do this slide here to put the question. So this is just to give us, like, see what state we're all in before we get started. So how would you rate the current quality culture in your organization? Excellent, we live and breathe quality and it shows. Good, we have a strong focus, but there's room for improvement. Fair, we try, but we're inconsistent and are too busy fighting fires to give it much focus. Or poor, quality is an afterthought at best. It's seen as a checkbox activity. So cast your votes and let's see.
Okay, we are receiving some votes, so we can share some intermediate results. So yeah, good is leading with 45%. Yeah, very close. We have fair and with 42%, 12% of poor, and just 1% excellent.
We want to be excellent. We all want to be excellent, right?
So, right. Yeah.
I think polls like this are good because if you happen to be one of the poor or fair ones, at least you can see you're not alone, right? A misery kind of loves company. So,
yeah, one question it comes to my mind, Lesley, is how to measure quality culture. I don't know if you're going to cover this. If not, we can keep it for the Q&A.
Yeah, no, I'm not specifically going to cover that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's end the poll and let's share the results.
Okay. So that's not a bad report card, really. Only one excellent out of all the votes, though. Okay, that's good. So hopefully this session will help inspire some of you to figure out how to go from good to excellent or fair to good or poor to fair. You know, we're just going for improvement, right? Okay, so let's get started. What is a quality culture? What do we mean by quality culture? Well, let's talk about what a culture is. A culture is a shared set of values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. So then, a quality culture is a shared set of values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that support the quality goals of your organization. They're shared by all. They support your quality policy and objectives, which in turn support delivering products and services that meet the needs and expectations of your customers, ideally. But this wording is a little bit vague and not particularly practical. So let's make it clearer and almost more accessible to everyone if we phrase it something like this. A quality culture is a culture where a quality culture is one where there's a shared set of values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that guide how people think and act about the importance of quality in their roles. Now this is accessible to everyone in the organization. They get this a little bit more, right? And this is essentially it. This might seem overly simplistic. It's not jam-packed with all the buzzwords we're used to seeing and hearing. And yes, of course, it's about the product being good and the patient being safe. And it's about constantly being on the lookout for ways to make things better, right? And the thing is, when we have this shared mindset, this deep understanding of the importance of quality in all we do, in all roles throughout the organization, then those things are going to naturally happen. Customer satisfaction, regulatory compliance, and continuous improvement, and also business success will be a natural offshoot of this culture. It's unavoidable. It's not just about following the guidelines and rules, but it's also about seeing others take quality-focused actions, hearing others talk about quality, feeling quality all around us. Everyone from top management to the operational level has a role in creating and maintaining quality. In case it's not clear by now, this is the people piece, which, since our businesses are actually nothing without the people, is probably the most important and ironically the most overlooked piece. So a quality culture is an environment where everyone understands and cares about the quality of their work, and where the beliefs, thinkings, and actions of everyone ensure decisions are made to achieve the desired level of quality. The thinking goes beyond compliance, beyond a standard, beyond the regulations. It's quality for the sake of quality. And like Angel said at the beginning, it's a mindset. It's about going beyond the bare minimum and striving for excellence. It's not a poster. It's not a gold star from the auditor. It's not a box to be ticked. It's not a certificate on the wall. It's a way of thinking and behaving that's lived by all, a core value that influences every action at all levels, top to bottom and across the organization. And that one person who voted that their quality culture was excellent probably has this happening. Everybody is living this concept of quality and understanding it. When we pare it down like this, it's kind of shocking that we all don't have one, or we all aren't motivated to build one fast. It's essentially the infrastructure that allows us to succeed in our businesses. But somewhere along the line, the connection between quality and the health and success of our businesses has been lost. It falls on us as quality people to remind the others of this connection, so that they can be inspired and motivated to adopt the values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that will get quality into their minds and into their daily actions, so that it becomes integral to our businesses. Why do we need one? Why do we need a quality culture? Because if we want to truly deliver quality to our customers, which hopefully is what we're aiming for, and if we want to stand out from the competition, we have to go beyond compliance. Following the rules, meeting the standard, passing the audit, getting the license or certificate, that allows us to play the game. That's a bare minimum. But if we want to be extraordinary, if we want to be excellent, if we want to take it to the next level, compliance helps us meet the standards and regulations, but a quality mindset or a quality culture helps us exceed them. It's a competitive advantage and is the difference between an ordinary organization and an extraordinary one. And if being excellent and standing above our competition isn't enough of a reason, there's a couple of other really compelling ones. First, as we race along, moving from the binders and clutter and chaos of paper-based systems to the efficiency of electronic systems, and then move excitedly into the future of AI, things are changing fast. These changes mean we don't have to rely on humans and their fallibilities as much as we used to. We're fairly confident we won't miss a deadline. We're sure all signatures are where they need to be when we're checked up on. And we're pretty sure that everyone's had the training they're supposed to have, or at least that the box has been ticked. We know we've checked all the boxes. We can rest easy. We know we're compliant. And that's fine if you're confusing quality and compliance. Following the rules, ticking the boxes allows you to get the certificate. It allows you to make and sell the products. But checking the boxes is no guarantee that you've got a well-run quality system or even a good quality product for that matter. If you want to be competitive, you got to go beyond the rules. You see, the downside of all of this super ease in terms of having everything automated is that it's shockingly easy to put it out of our minds, out of sight, out of mind. When we see a big fat binder that says quality manual on its spine, we remember we have one. When we grab the clipboard and record the temperature of the fridge in the morning, we know we've done it. When we grab the procedures off the shelf and flip through looking for a certain how-to, we remember that procedures exist and we know where to find them. Now more than ever, it's important that we put quality in everyone's minds, because now more than ever, it's so easy for it not to be there. It's below the surface now. Other than being on the slogan on the wall, on the website, maybe on our email signatures, quality is hidden. Quality is often just words, usually empty ones, and often for the sake of marketing. We don't see it, we don't touch it, and we might not even remember it. So our job as quality people is to make sure everyone at our organization remembers it, knows what it looks like, and knows why it matters. And the best way to achieve this is by building a quality culture. I said there were a couple of reasons that this is becoming increasingly important. The other reason is that quality management maturity is becoming increasingly important. The FDA is starting to care more about how mature our quality management systems are, and they even have a scoring system to determine maturity. And the score includes an objective score for quality culture, so it matters. If you're interested in learning more about this quality management maturity, Andrea has a link that she's going to put in the chat that will take you to the website, the FDA website that has other documents about all of this, I think. Andrea, are you going to do that? And I guess in line with that, there's this new ISO standard, 10,010, that's all about understanding, evaluating, and improving your organization's quality culture. It's important enough that ISO thought to spend money writing a standard. I sense that it's going to become more and more important. As quality goes undercover and becomes seamless, as though that's somehow a good thing, it's become more obvious that we need to be more intentional about it. We don't want seamless to become seamless. Whether or not the new standard becomes well used, well recognized, or widely adopted is neither here nor there, really. Its existence alone proves that quality culture matters. So there's this undercurrent of activity in this area, and having a commitment to building a quality culture, having that final human element in place, is becoming increasingly important and relevant. Now's the time to get our house in order so we're not left behind. Now let's talk about what's the foundation for a quality culture. As a quality person, your job is to make sure your company has a good product or service, happy customers, and a great reputation as a business. You have to think about your organization like a house. Imagine what happens to a house built on a poor foundation. It falls down. Same thing happens with an organization. Almost all disasters like the Challenger explosion, thalidomide birth defects, Pinto car fires, doors falling off airplanes, all of these problems come from quality management problems. Could a quality culture have prevented those disasters and saved lives? The foundation for a good quality management system is a quality culture. But what's the foundation for a quality culture? It's pretty simple. It doesn't have to do with standards or technical matters or fancy tools or colored belts and training. No, it's simpler and more complicated. It has to do with our interpersonal skills. More specifically, our relationship building skills and our communication skills. And if we go deeper to what lies beneath those two buckets of foundational skills, it gets even clearer. The foundation of building a quality culture is clarity and trust. Let's think about each of these. Clarity. What am I talking about? I'm not talking about clear communication per se, even though that's often what people think about when they hear the word clarity. But no, I'm talking about clear thinking. Clear communication automatically happens once we have clear thoughts. Clear communication is evidence of clarity. So I'm talking about taking a step back and remembering our purpose. Not our purpose in our little silos, stepping further back than that. What's the purpose of our organization? Why do we do what we do? Why do we make what we make? Why are we in business? Why does our company exist? We need this clarity of purpose. We all have fancy slogans, mission statements, visions, guiding principles. We say all the right things. It's about patience. It's about serving. It's about innovation. It's about continuous improvement. But the reality is, these slogany things are mostly about marketing. Can every single person who works in your organization answer the question, what's our purpose? And if they can, does everyone have the same answer? I had a client who was struggling to build a quality culture. And he said he wasn't even sure the guys on the assembly line knew what the little thing they were making was for. They didn't know that it was something to do with the safety of the vehicles they were making. No idea. just coming to work, making a widget, following instructions, counting down the minutes until they went home. No sense of, oh, what I do is critical in helping keep people safe. We need clarity about quality as well. How is quality related to our business goals? Let's call this clarity about the relevance of quality. So we need to understand our business in order to be able to have this kind of clarity. And then we need to make sure that every single person in the organization has clarity about what is my specific role in achieving quality. We can call this clarity about our role. And finally, we need clarity about why does this matter to me and my daily work? Or essentially, every single person in the organization needs to have clarity on, so what? Why should I care? Again, this one's about relevance, but on an individual level. Like, what's the relevance of quality to each individual, and not on the bigger picture relevance of quality to the business? We need clarity on all of these things if we're going to have a quality culture. Because a quality culture, any culture really, comes from a shared mindset, a shared vision. If we haven't even got to the point where we all realize we're working toward a common purpose, regardless of what we do in our little corner of the organization, the shared vision that's needed for a quality culture is missing, and it'll be hard to build one. So there has to be clarity. We save lives, or we improve quality of life. What is it that people are getting behind? What makes people come to work and do the daily grind with a sense of purpose in the world? How does what they do feed into the larger purpose? Why should they care about quality? All of this is clarity. You got to be clear about that and get everyone marching to the same beat. Whatever it is, everyone has to know it, believe in it, and know what it looks like for them. And that can only happen if there's clarity. Clarity leads to this shared vision and a single purpose. If we have this, we can go well beyond compliance and we can rise to the top. Of course, the harsh reality is that there's not clarity, or if there is, it's stuck at the top and hasn't trickled down. So that means one of the key unwritten responsibilities of the quality person, you guys, is to provide clarity. You're in a unique position. You're in touch with everyone in the organization. You can be the one to ensure there's clarity on all fronts. And for you to be able to do this, this takes me to my next point in terms of the foundation you need. You need to have trust. Trust is everything. It impacts every relationship, every conversation, every agreement, and every decision. The ability to influence people, which is what we're trying to do, and share values, beliefs, attitudes, and norms of behavior is unlikely to happen without trust. How do we build trust? Think of trust as having two components. I like to call them head trust and heart trust. So head trust. Head trust is logical, evidence-based, intellectual sort of trust. It's tangible. The person's behavior sends the signal that this person can be trusted. They've proven themselves trustworthy. They're competent and credible. Quick. You believe they know what they're doing. You trust their qualifications. They're reliable and consistent. They show up on time. They keep their word. They do what they say they'll do, and they meet their deadlines. You can count on them. And they're honest and have integrity. Their actions and words match. All their words match all their other words. All their actions match all their other actions. All of this head trust is very tangible. They're consistent, reliable, truthful. They do what they agree to do. They do a good job, and they say what they mean, and they mean what they say. It's just logical to trust this person because the evidence is piling up that they're trustworthy. That's head trust. We think we're doing okay on the trust front if we're nailing the head trust. Yeah, I'm trustworthy. I'm on time. I meet my deadlines. I'm good at what I do. I don't lie about my qualifications. You can totally trust me. But that's just one part of trust. We have to go further than this if we want to get to the point where the trust in our relationships is strong enough to allow us to influence the other person. Let's consider heart trust. This is more of a gut feeling, like I can't put my finger on it, but I just don't trust her. When there's heart trust, people feel that you have their best interests at heart. We need to feel that someone is compassionate if we're going to trust them. We trust that this person is empathetic. They will listen. They will reserve judgment, and they will make an effort to understand our perspective. This is the side of trust that allows us to make ourselves vulnerable enough to ask questions and seek feedback. which is what we need in a quality culture. If you want to win the heart trust of others, we have to show up as human. We must be authentic. We must be willing to show vulnerability. If you hide behind your professional armor, it will be hard for people to feel like they know you. If they don't know you, it will be hard for them to trust you. How often do you trust someone you don't know? When have you gone to bat for someone you don't know? Right? The truth is, we rarely trust people we don't know. So to build trust, we have to allow people to know us. And to allow people to know us, we have to let our guard down. We need to show up and show our true selves to build heart trust. This takes courage, especially in a professional setting. Often we're afraid to show ourselves, our true selves at work. We're worried that if we're too human, we'll lower ourselves in the eyes of the others, and it will be hard to maintain our authority and credibility. But credibility and authority don't come from putting ourselves at a distance from people. Credibility and authority don't come from raising our voices, pointing our fingers, bossing people around, or putting up walls. And they don't come from a title or a corner office either. Credibility and authority come from being credible and trustworthy. We're worried that if we make ourselves too vulnerable, there'll be a loss of respect. This is also an unfounded fear. We respect people who show us their soft bits. We know it takes courage for people to show us their true selves. We respect people who have courage. And finally, to build trust, we have to be genuine. We have to believe that the other person understands us, cares about us, and cares about our success, genuinely. If we feel that someone really doesn't care about us, we see everything they do and say in that light, and we don't really trust them. And we're really good at seeing fakes. So if you want to build good relationships, which is essential for building a quality culture, you've got to have the trust piece in place. By now, you might be realizing that clarity and trust are tightly linked. Let's talk about that for a minute because I think it's important. The connection between clarity and trust. I'm going to keep this simple. If we have clarity of thought, as discussed earlier, we will have a clear message. It's impossible not to. When we have a clear message, people understand what we're saying. When people understand what we're saying, they think we know what we're talking about because they understand us so well. When people think we know what we're talking about, they trust us. But the trick is we have to realize that the way to have that clear message is to keep it simple. If anybody knows me, they know, if you've seen anything I've written on LinkedIn, we must keep it simple. And it's easy to keep things simple if you've got clear thinking. But if you don't have clear thinking, it's very hard to keep things simple. The problem we have is that in a misguided attempt to prove ourselves intelligent, experienced, knowledgeable, credible, and trustworthy, we're often tempted to use complex technical language. We think it makes us sound like we know what we're doing. Look at all the big words and concepts I know. I know what I'm doing. You can trust me, right? But no, this thinking is a bit off and can backfire on us and usually does. When our language is too complex, it creates barriers, not bridges. It makes others feel excluded or overwhelmed, eroding the very trust we're trying to build. And then if you add language barriers or cultural differences, it becomes a disaster. The main thing is to be understood. We can't forget that. The easiest way to do that is by embracing clarity and simplicity in our communication. Clear communication signals that we're transparent and confident in our knowledge. It shows that we respect our audience's time and understanding. And most importantly, it builds credibility. When people understand what we're saying, they're more likely to trust our judgment and follow our guidance and do what we need them to do. If we see our role going beyond the role of enforcer to being someone who educates and supports others on this path to building a quality culture, then we need to build trust and increase our influence. And now you know how to do that. Keep it simple and be clear. That's how you do that. We need clarity of thought before we can have clear communication. We need clear communication before we can have trust. And we need to keep it simple if we want to have clear communication. And now you can see when you add these together that trust is not just about keeping our word, it's about keeping our words simple. We need trust and clarity before we can build a quality culture. Now, I'm sure you noticed the word communication in each of these things. It keeps showing up in our discussion. That's because you're going to struggle with both clarity and trust, and therefore building a quality culture without this skill in place. The reality is, our ability to achieve clarity and build trust hinges entirely on how well we communicate. It's through effective communication that we align visions, build connections, and create a unified purpose so that we can build a quality culture. So then what do we have to do? How do we communicate well? First, this is an important thing. It's a skill, okay? It's not some special thing that certain people have and other people don't. It's a skill. You can learn it, practice it, and get better at it. It's no different from piano or tennis. Okay, here are the elements. First, you have to know what you're talking about. There's no way to communicate simply and clearly if you don't understand what you're talking about. So learn what you have to learn. You also need to have good emotional intelligence. You have to understand how you tick and how others tick. You have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes in order to communicate effectively with them. Communication is not about saying what you need to say. It's about saying what the other person needs to hear in order to understand what you want them to understand. And you can't do that if you don't have at least a little bit of emotional intelligence. And this emotional intelligence also helps you land on the right tone and all of that as well. And you need language skills. You need to know how to use the language. You need to know how to change your approach and your words based on what you're trying to achieve and who you're talking to. You have to have the awareness, the ability, and the knowledge to be flexible and change things up with your word choice, your formality, your tone, your speed of delivery, and all of that. And of course, you need two other things. You need to know your audience. Who are you talking to? What do they know? How do they think? What motivates them? How do they make decisions? How do they like to receive their information? How does this person feel about you and feel about the topic? And what does all of this mean for how you'll approach things? This is about knowing the audience. And finally, you have to know your purpose. What are you trying to achieve? How does that impact the how, what, when, and where of your message? What outcomes are you going for? These last two, know your audience and know your purpose, fall into the whole clarity piece. You need clarity on who you're dealing with and what you're trying to achieve. And then you plan accordingly and use the first three things, your knowledge, your emotional intelligence, and your way with words, to get things to go in your favor. So really, before we rush off and worry about the how-tos of building a quality culture, you absolutely have to make sure you have this foundation of clarity and trust, which requires good communication skills. And only then can you begin working on making improvements. Okay, so you might at this point going, this session is going in a different direction from what I was expecting. It's probably not what you're expecting. But now we're going to very briefly talk about how to build a quality culture. But first, there's another poll. Oh, there's another poll right after this, right here. Okay, so hopefully you're still with us. So Andrea's going to put this up officially in the poll. So the question is, in your opinion, what's the most critical factor for successfully building and sustaining a quality culture? Strong leadership, commitment to quality, clear and consistent communication at all levels, high levels of employee engagement and empowerment, or effective training and education?
Okay, Lesley. Right. So we are just receiving some votes. Let's see. So we have about 50% of clear and consistent communication at all levels. The second one is strong leadership commitment to quality with 25%. Close to that, we have the third one is high levels of employee engagement and empowerment, and just 5% effective training and education.
I'm surprised. I think it all starts with effective training and education.
Yeah.
I was hoping for a 25, 25, 25, 25 split on this. So we'll see how it plays out. That's interesting. That's interesting that people aren't focused all that much on the training and education. Training and education is part of communication, really. I mean, to me, in my mind, that's the very important part of the communication.
Yeah, but this is not enough at all, right?
No, 5% or whatever you said, that's no. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Okay,
start writing
let's
a
end the
post
poll.
about this.
Let's end the poll and
Okay.
share the results. Here they are.
Okay. And communication, okay, this isn't that bad. Communication, because communication fills into all the other ones. Um, high levels of engage. Yeah. Okay. In any event, there was a pretty good spread. I am surprised at how low the training and education vote was, but that's okay. But in any event, this is big, right? This feels so big. There's so many elements to this, and getting started is overwhelming, especially once we realize we might not have that foundation in place yet. Like if
Mhm.
your communication skills aren't all that good, you're like, uh-oh. But I'm going to go through now what has to happen to build a quality culture. And hopefully you're not going to laugh at how straightforward this is. It's obvious, especially after I spell it out. And you all probably know all this. We make it so complicated. The first thing we have to do is get clarity on your vision. How often do you plan a trip that when you haven't decided on your destination? Probably never, right? So before we can even start planning out the map for how we're going to do this, you need to decide what you want what you want it to look like. Now, you can think about using the traditional sorts of categories that we're used to hearing when we're thinking about quality management, that types of principles that are laid out in ISO 10010, for example. They talk about customer focus, leadership, engagement of people, process, approach, improvement, evidence-based decision making, relationship management. That's fine, but that's so clinical and it might box you in. Plus, that's a lot of different categories. You're here because you're not sure where to start. Maybe you're a little bit overwhelmed. And presumably, so far, you haven't made much headway except the person with the excellent quality culture. So I'm suggesting keeping away from these vague and slightly theoretical categories and getting greater clarity. And remember, clarity is what we're going for here by making it a bit more practical. What if you break down your thinking and your vision into four broad categories that basically address most of the main obstacles we face? What if we create a very, very clear vision of what we want to see in each of these categories? Leadership commitment, employee engagement and empowerment, education and training, and communication. If you can create a really clear picture of what you want to see in each of these areas, that will be an amazing starting point. Like very clear, all the details are written in the present tense as if it's happening. This is how we have to do this. So get really clear on that vision, where you're going. And then you have to have an honest look at where you are now. Get clarity on the current situation. Honestly look at your company. Now, in those four categories. Now, this is going to require a bit of work, right? You might have to observe things. You might have to collect some data. You might have some data. You might have to talk to people. You have to do whatever you have to do to find out about your current state. Okay. And then simply identify the gaps. I want to be here. I'm here now. What's in the way? What has to happen? Okay. So this is your basic gap analysis, but we're keeping it a little more manageable and very, very relevant. Now, this whole quality culture thing is a massive job, and getting results will keep you going. So keep it small at first. These four areas in my mind are where you're going to have the biggest impact. And when you make progress with things that have big impact, you will be motivated to keep on going. Now, there are no rules about how we go about this. My hope is that you take these ideas and make them your own. Maybe you love to break things down by the more traditional categories I mentioned earlier, so go for it. Maybe you love to think of everything in terms of different categories like people, processes, technology, and resources. So go for it. For me, because I know the essence of all of this is relationships and communication, I think these 4 categories will keep us focused on the things we really need to be focused on. But if you don't like it, take the idea of the gap analysis and run with it in whatever way makes sense for you, your brain, and your organization. Now, at this point, we'll be faced with the very uncomfortable situation of having seen all our gaps. Now it's hard to unsee them and bury our heads in the sand. And you might be overwhelmed about like where to start. How do you prioritize a million things? And hopefully you won't have a million things, but I suspect you'll have more than one thing. So you'll need to figure out a system to prioritize them. So next step, determine priorities. Again, I suggest use whichever method or tool works for you. Like I even hate the word tool and I hate the word method. It's like just use your brain or make one up. It doesn't matter. There is no best way to think. Trust yourself. Start trusting your ability to think this through. We're just talking about using our heads. I created my own little priority assessment tool that ranks each of the gaps in terms of 3 criteria. Impact, in terms of how it will impact quality and therefore the business. Urgency, if there's a fire, put it out, obviously. Feasibility, in terms of bodies and money and competing business priorities and all of that. Give each gap a score on each of these, tally them up, start with the one with the highest score. That's it. Simple, right? So when you're thinking about impact, you're thinking about things like organizational performance, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, morale, retention type thing, compliance and risk, competitive advantage. When you're thinking about urgency, immediate threats, regulatory deadlines, customer impact, operational disruptions, reputation risk, maybe. When you're thinking about feasibility, resources, technical capabilities, management support, time, complexity. Maybe you want to do a SWOT analysis instead of something like this because that's what you're used to. That's fine. There are a million ways to prioritize. You do you, or more critically, like you do your organization. To me, my system is simple and logical and helps bring clarity. That's what we're going for here. We need this clarity because then now that you know what you want to work on first, you can create an action plan, literally make a plan. We've spent all this time, steps 1 to 4 are about getting clarity, and now you're ready to take action. And your plan's going to cover the usual thing that plans cover. You know how to make plans. And if you don't find out, come to me, ask someone, Google it, right? Basically, you need to have define clear objectives, identify clear actions, assign responsibilities, set timelines, allocate resources, define success, and monitor and track progress. That's the basics of it. Don't overcomplicate things. By categorizing different areas of focus, those 4 areas I talked about, defining what you're aiming for in those areas, and being real about where things are now, and identifying the gaps, and assessing the priorities somewhat objectively, you can be confident that you're starting on something that will make a difference. When you break down the action steps required, you'll get clarity literally on what to do next and next and next. You've done the thinking, and now you can act. Results only come from actions, but you need a plan for the actions, and you can't have a plan without clarity. If you just run from fire to fire to fire, you'll never build a quality culture. You need to be proactive about this. Hopefully, I've taken away a bit of the overwhelm from this somewhat overwhelming task. Just be logical and methodical about it. Don't overcomplicate it. Everything I went through today is so simple and so logical. My slides have nothing much on them. Understand your company, understand quality management, understand your people, understand where you're trying to go, and work on your communication skills. And if you do that, you'll get there. And yes, of course, there are going to be detours on your plans. Like, for example, your plan might include having a high stakes conversation with someone, but you realize you've got confidence issues, or you realize you don't actually know the principles of influence. So then you learn what you need to learn so that one by one you can chip away at these actions. That's how it will go. It won't be fast, but it will be clear. And that's what you're going for. It starts with you, and it starts with clarity. Okay, it's time for questions now. But before we do that, I'd love to ask you guys a question. I'd like to ask you, what's your biggest takeaway or biggest insight from this session?
Okay, you can use the chat.
Yeah, I don't know if I can see that. Okay.
All right. Lucia says heart trust. Jessica, yeah, clarity and trust. Joanna, realizing that my team needs to trust me. Yeah, clarity. Simplicity from Jacqueline. Yeah, clarity and task and trust. Good communication skills.
I
Yeah,
like
I
somebody
think,
said quality is just common sense. It's like, yeah, yeah. And we overcomplicate it. We make people afraid of it, that we make people afraid of us, you know? And then how can you build trust? Yeah,
okay.
Robert says no single method or tool is a silver bullet. I believe so strongly in that. I think we get sucked into thinking there's a right way of doing things. We have to do it the way the person before us did it or the way everyone else in our department does it. No, you don't. Like you can do your own thing.
Yeah, in fact, it's a little bit of different factors that should be well aligned, right? Uh, it's not just a unique factor.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, Lesley, thank you very much because this has been a very enlightening, yeah, presentation about quality culture. And after the training part, yes, we are now going to move to the Q&A session. And yeah, during this time, you can ask any question. Yeah, you have the opportunity to ask Lesley about any question about this topic. You can use the Q&A button to ask them. We have already received some questions in the chat. So let's go to each one. Okay. There are three, yeah, two or three of them very related to some insights from you, Lesley. I think we have covered them, but anyway, if you want to add anything, the first one is how from Simon is how do we change or influence changes in mindset and beliefs of people? Another one from Jessica, very related to this one, is how do we change mindset of people from the top to the bottom? Okay. And I think it's very related to, yeah, to clarity with trust.
Yeah. My
And
answer is
I would
always going to
also
be,
like to include
yeah.
being good persons because um, yeah, I've had some personal experiences. You have a director or a manager, and if the director and the manager is a good person, communicates well and everything is much easier.
Yeah,
So trust is guaranteed, right?
yeah. So let me try with these questions. I wish I could see where they are.
Yeah,
Uh,
they are at the very beginning of in the chat. So let me check. It's um
oh, here, Simon. Yeah, how do we change or influence changes in mindset?
yeah,
Um, so you have to know the people you're trying to influence. Okay, that's the critical thing. That's why that's why we need relationships. Because if we do not know the other person, we cannot figure out what matters to them.
mhm,
And if we do not know what matters to people, we cannot influence them because influence really is about an exchange. You're going to give somebody something they need in exchange for something you need. And what you need is you need them to adopt these beliefs and shared vision and all this stuff that we want them to believe. Um, but what do they need? You got to know that.
yeah,
They might need they might need reassurance that if you adopt these ideas and everything, this is actually gonna make your life easier because you're gonna have less rework or you're gonna get home earlier or whatever it is. Like
yeah,
figure out what matters to every person and that so it's a one by one it's a one by like individual situation. It's not like, oh, here's how I'm going to influence upper management. It's no, here's how I'm going to influence Bob. Here's how I'm going to influence Susan. Here's how, like, it's like you have to think of each person as a person and figure out what matters to them.
Yeah, this is why as I have understood from you, is that personal communication face to face with each one of them is really important during the, yeah, in yeah, in a professional way during the day, right?
Yeah.
Not only when you want to communicate something with everybody in the
Yeah.
same place, right?
Yeah. I mean, you want to ideally, you want to have that human relationship with people where whether you're riding up the elevator together, walking to the car park together, whatever, you know a little bit about the human side of them. To build a relationship, really, one of the best ways to do it is to find something in common, right? Kids, pets, the
Yeah.
car you drive, the train you take, could be anything, right? Sport team you support. And for people to trust you, they've got to like you.
Mm.
And people like people who have things in common with them, right? And people like people who are nice and people like people who listen to them. So basically, you're doing everything you can do to make people like you. And that way, there's a better chance you're going to be able to get them to trust you. And then you're going to be able to influence them
Yeah.
because they 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 trust you.
Yeah. Right. So the first thing is to build good relationships, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So let's continue with another question from, sorry, from Apolline, is that what should we do when people know uh, why they should care, but they don't care anyway? Um,
I don't think you've hit the I don't think you if you if they really don't care, then you haven't figured out why they should care. You think you know why they care, but you haven't hit it. If they still don't care, you've missed the mark. So you've got to work harder at going, what motivates this person? What are they driven by? What do they care about? If they are acting like they don't care, they don't care. You haven't figured it out yet.
mhm.
So, watch that person, study that person, talk to other people. Like sometimes people are like, how am I supposed to influence my CEO who doesn't even work in the same building as me? He works even in a different country. How am I supposed? I'm not going to go for tea with this guy. It's like you can learn a lot about people even without meeting with them. You can learn from the other people that they are connected with. You can learn from anything they've written, any speaking they've done. Like you can learn how people think easily enough, even if you're not having rubbing elbows with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this case, yeah, with the person who's, you know, probably the person who left this question says, well, they should know why they care. I've told them why they should care, right? But that's that person's perspective about why they should care. They
Mhm.
haven't figured out the actual audience's perspective if the person still doesn't care.
Okay. So we have a question, right, from Payal. Lesley, what about if you have succeeded with having a good quality culture in your company? What about how can you sustain quality culture in the future?
Okay. I think that the education piece and the training piece is key for that. I think sort of like refresher training, but I think better than that, I think is just ongoing communication about quality so that quality is so boring. It's just such an everyday thing. It's
Mhm.
not a big deal. Like that's the level you want to get to where it's just, yeah, okay, whatever. And so that's going to happen when quality comes up all the time in every status meeting. There's a little blurb on quality, and it's not a bad thing about quality. It's not like a big quality crisis. It's just like you're mentioning quality in some way to remind people of like, hey, some definition about quality, having a newsletter with little quality jargon things. Every newsletter has some little something about quality, like just all the time be talking about quality in a not heightened, stressful way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lesley, what about, yeah, you know that some people understand quality culture as, yeah, having an extra work on top of them, right?
Hmm.
And how do you overcome this resistance
Yeah, that's the biggest resistance. And so it's important to understand where the resistance is coming from. Is the resistance coming just because people don't like change? Like human beings don't like change. So it could be like, okay, if that's what it is, maybe I need to learn about change management. Okay, so if that's resistance. But most likely the resistance is, oh my God, there's going to be so much more work. Like I'm already drowning. I can't do more. Like this is ridiculous. I don't want to do this. That's typically where the resistance is coming from. Or it's coming from, what if I don't know what I'm supposed, what if I don't know how to do this? Right? It could be just fear of the unknown, fear of like not having the ability or skills or knowledge to do whatever this, mysterious quality thing is. Could be that. So it's about trying to figure out where that resistance is coming from. And typically it is this fear of like too much work. I'm already overworked. So then it's helping them understand um, how having a quality culture will address that fear. Like, oh, well, actually, this is, show them how quality culture will tie into their daily task and actually, reduce their work, reduce the reworks, reduce, imagine not having not having as many deviations to deal with, you know. Um, so you want to show them how quality culture can make their work easier and more fulfilling by reducing mistakes, improving processes, enhancing, customer satisfaction, all of that stuff. And also a really important thing to do is involve people in it, right? Ask for their input. When people feel involved and they feel like they have some choices and they feel like they're being listened to and their concerns are being heard, you're going to get way more cooperation. They'll have a sense of ownership and they'll be like, yeah, I thought of this idea. I'll let me do it, right? Get them involved and help them see the value of it.
Mhm. Okay. Nice. So we have 1 more minute. I would like to ask another question we have from here. You know that there are some companies that have different sites around the world. There are people from different cultures, right? And there are also companies that work 100% remotely.
Yeah.
So for those companies, how can you keep people engaged to quality culture if they are not, physically
Yeah.
present, right?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And I'm going to use the word clarity again because the relationships are harder. The relationships for sure are harder. And you can try all the little things like having little social time, things remotely, people try all sorts of things like that. Um, But having clarity on your core values and your principles allows you to be consistent across different locations around the world, like just clarity about like what is our vision as a company, even though we've got 27 sites in 27 countries, right? And then also don't be trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Like you have to consider the cultural differences, the local differences, and yes, the core message is the same, but have some flexibility in going, okay, well, we need to locally adapt this. And then I think the best thing you can do is really focus on having like quality champions at each place, like somebody who represents quality there, right? And that goes for even one site, where the departments are far off, far removed from quality. Start thinking about the idea of having some quality champions who can just take the word about quality, because the people around them will listen to someone they know more than they'll listen to this quality person who's just,
Yeah, you are completely right.
you know,
Okay. I'm afraid it's time. Yeah, we could be here talking for hours about this
yeah.
issue, but I'm afraid, this is the end of the webinar today. So I want to appreciate everybody for being here and yeah, for your participation to the Q&A questions. We've got a lot of questions. We'll collect all of them, even those that we have not been able to cover. So we will prepare also the answers. Lesley will prepare that. And I want to thank Lesley. Special thanks to her for this, aligning, training. I love this topic a lot. And yeah, remember that we're going to prepare this recap page. We're going to send you also the recording to you in the following weeks. And that's all. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you in the following training session that we hold every month. So have a nice day and thank you very much. See you.
Thank you.